Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
And this is the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast. Hello, lovely listeners. Dr. Mary here with this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss, joined by my beautiful, lovely, fabulous colleague, Dr. Lucy Burns. Tell me, Lucy, how are you going on this fine spring day?
Well, I'm awesome. By the time this is coming to air, I'll actually be even awesomer, if that's a word, because I will have had a little holiday. And I think that rejuvenating, recharging, resetting, and rebalancing is one of the most vital things that a human can do.
I love it. I'm about to go on my own little rejuvenating, reset, rebalance soon as well. I'm going camping tomorrow with my friends and my kids' friends, and I'm going to unplug and I'm going to just de-stress. It's going to be amazing. The beautiful internal rebalancing that's about to occur is going to be extremely healthful.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, you know, I think when we're in the thick of it, we often think we need months off to recalibrate, and 4 days will do it.
Easily. Honestly, even just taking a few minutes here and there throughout your day can make an enormous difference. I still think go on a holiday. Don't get me wrong. Holidays are good, but even just a few little peppered throughout the day, just little moments to breathe is very good for your internal chemistry. And it's our internal chemistry that determines whether we are well or unwell, whether we are overweight or whether we have a healthy weight, whether our bodies function well or if we've got pain, fatigue, problems. And it's a great little segue. I love it because today we're talking about our internal chemistry and how we can get our bodies into a nice, healthy balance. And that weight loss is important for health for many people. I'm far more interested in health than I am in weight loss, but I think for many people, weight loss is part of the health puzzle. It is both a cause and an effect of, being unwell and having metabolic issues. And so it's totally okay to want weight loss. It's good to pursue weight loss as long as you do it in a healthy way. And calorie counting, calorie restriction is not a good way to lose weight.
Absolutely. And my favourite saying of yours, Mez, weight loss is chemistry, not maths. And basically that talks about the idea that it's a hormonal process, not a calorie counting process. We are not buckets of calories. We are indeed a bucket of hormones. And when you understand that process, it just makes so much sense. And realizing, and I'll just look and go, oh my God, I can't believe for decades. I mean, I knew the calorie amount of just about every food known to man. I could tell you, that a medium-sized apple had 80 calories. I knew a banana had 130 calories. Like, I haven't looked at that book for 20 years. I still know it because it ruled my life, and I'm sure many of you, for so long, and yet was just the wrong tool. I was basically trying to hoe my garden with a spade.
That's right. That's right. You can't get very far with that at all. I can remember doing the shakes. That overwhelming hunger with those processed shakes, because yes, they were low in calories, but they did nothing to actually address the hormonal problems that were going on inside my body. As I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, I've primed for severe insulin resistance, being so hungry, suffering so much, but doing it because it was going to get me thin, and also doing it because I was told to by doctors and dietitians.
Yeah,
I am so glad those days are behind me, and that I have become enlightened, and that I've met beautiful enlightened people like you, Lucy, and now we can help people lose weight the right way, which is addressing your internal health.
Absolutely. And recognizing that, some of those tools that, I mean, they're still, Optifast is still recommended today by
Mm,
doctors, particularly pre weight loss surgery, as a good tool to reduce the fat in your liver. However, it's full of sugar, it's full of seed
mm.
oils, it's highly inflammatory. And honestly, just this morning, I was just doing a little scour of a Facebook group, a lipedema Facebook group that I'm in, and a lady was mentioning this, that she's booked for weight loss surgery. She's been told to take these shakes, she's taking them, and her lipedema pain is worse than ever. Like, she's so inflamed. And
Oh,
so I know it
mm.
really just comes back to this idea that yes, weight loss is a thing that can be aspired to, but not at any cost.
Mm, mm. And you said before, we're not buckets of hormones, we're not buckets of calories, we're buckets of hormones. We're actually like this incredibly intricate orchestra
Mm,
of hormones where every single hormonal system in our body interacts with every other single hormonal system in mind-bogglingly complex ways.
mm,
And it is really complicated. But I love that we are really complicated, but we are also really simple.
mm.
And there is one master hormone there, one master hormonal system that's like the conductor that can influence the balance and internal health of every other system. And that master hormone is insulin. And insulin has a major role in like being overweight, in obesity, in type 2 diabetes, relevant for me, polycystic ovarian syndrome. It is incredibly important for menopausal women to know about. Anybody with a weight loss goal needs to understand insulin and its role and what you can do to balance your insulin.
Indeed, indeed. And for those of you who haven't heard our woodshed analogy, I'm just going to quickly go through it because I think it just explains the whole way our fat storage works in a way that hopefully makes really clear sense. So, the way I like to describe it is that we have two forms of fuel that we can utilize in our body. We can utilize carbohydrates or glucose, and we can utilize fat. There are two forms. Carbohydrates, glucose, are fast acting energy. They're like kindling. It burns quickly but dies down quickly. Whereas our fat is like logs. You put it on, lasts all day. Put another one on, lasts all day. Just the slow burn. In an ideal world, we should use both. Just like in an ideal fireplace, you would put some kindling on, then when the kindling's sort of getting ready, you put a log on. Like literally, it seems so simple, but that's pretty much how our bodies should work as well. But what's happened just with a combination of genetics, of lifestyle, of external factors, our population has developed insulin resistance in a large proportion of it. So, not every single person, but a very big proportion of our population
Very common.
is now
Very.
insulin resistant. And what that means for the woodshed or the kindling log analogy is that you don't have access to those logs that should be just right next to your fireplace. In fact, they're out the back in a woodshed, and the woodshed is locked. So you put your kindling on, you toddle out to the woodshed, you can see all of these logs, which is your stored fat. You can see it's all there, ready to burn, but you got to open the door, and the door is locked. And the lock is essentially your insulin levels. So some people have, one small lock, and some people have like 6 or 7 or 8, 10 locks on their woodshed. It's locked tight. So they can't get their fat. They come back to their fireplace, it's starting to dwindle, the carbohydrates are sort of running out, i.e., the kindling's now down to a few ashes, and your brain is actually saying to you, you're running out of fuel, you're starving, you're hungry, you need to eat. And so you go, okay, oh my God, what am I going to have? And you grab a sandwich. And your brain's really happy with that plan because basically you've grabbed a handful of kindling, popped it back into the fire, everyone's happy. And this
Mm.
goes on and on. And basically, what ends up happening is that you're trying to heat your house with kindling. it's incredibly inefficient. And every single time you add more carbohydrate, you add another lock to the padlock, to the woodshed. And so
Yes,
the
making the problem worse and worse.
absolutely, yes. So the solution makes the problem worse. And that you sort of end up in this little spiral.
Mm, mm. It's like the literal explanation for some people who love it. Literal explanations. I love an analogy, Lucia.
I know.
That is a beautiful. Yeah, it is that insulin is a hormone made by a pancreas. It has many roles in regulating our blood sugar, but one crucial role is its role in regulating fat storage. And so when insulin levels are high, it stimulates our fat cells to store sugar and glucose and turn it into fat. That's the process of making more fat. And when it's high, it also turns off our ability to burn fat. That is why, the woodshed is locked. You can't get that. And if you're metabolically healthy, then this is great. The process works seamlessly. You're burning. You can burn some sugar, and then you can burn some fat. So you're heating your house with both kindling and the woodshed. But the problem arises if you are not metabolically healthy. And this is incredibly common. Some researchers estimate that up to 88% of adults in the Western world are not metabolically healthy. So up to 88% of people have got that metaphorical, fat stores, their woodshed is locked,
Mm,
and they probably don't even know. And this traditional advice that really doesn't address what is actually locking away our fat stores, not to mention also causing a host of chronic illnesses, um, isn't going to work, not for good health and not long term. Weight loss is not maths, it is chemistry.
absolutely. And the problem that then sort of the cascade event, as you mentioned, it's hormones are like an orchestra. So, that starts with insulin being high. Then over time, there's another little hormone called leptin, which is our satiety hormone, or it's meant to tell our brain that we're full. And it rises when our fat stores are high, which is sensible because, if you've got fat stores, it tells the brain, listen, you don't need to eat that much. You've got plenty of stored fat. Don't worry about it. Except the brain becomes resistant. And so you
Mm.
then develop this leptin resistance, which actually then makes it very hard to feel full initially. So you constantly feel like you're hungry and you eat, and you can eat huge amounts because the satiety signaling mechanism is also a little bit broken. And then, as part of all of that, we have the incretin hormones, which we have talked a little bit about in the past. But these little beauties have come to fame. They're like the star of the show at the moment because many of the injectable weight loss drugs are incretin analogs. And what that means is they mimic our natural incretin hormones. And these are called GLP-1 and GIP.
And these hormones have an absolutely key role as well. And hence these weight loss medications such as Ozempic, Wegovy, they are absolute blockbuster drugs because they do actually help people lose weight at that metabolic level.
Mm, yes. And in fact, I love the blockbuster word because you're absolutely right. They are uh, the company that makes semaglutide, which is marketed as both Ozempic and Wegovy, is making so much money and it's a Danish company, and they are now making more money than the entire GDP of Denmark, to the point where
Mm,
it's completely kind of buggered up their economy, which again, I'm not an economist, but I'm thinking the economy is very much like an orchestra as well. When you've got
mm,
one player that takes over, it changes the whole tune. And this has had a profound effect on the Danish economy.
mm.
But worldwide, because of the uptake by consumers, which are the general public and doctors prescribing them, there are massive shortages here, there, and everywhere.
Mm. Which is obviously an enormous headache for people who are on these medications. People who are valuing their health and want to lose weight and are using this as a tool and then, the tool has unstable supply, that's pretty rubbish for everybody out there. And I think that empowering yourself with knowledge and understanding, how you can heal your metabolism, how you can actually address the underlying cause of being overweight, without necessarily relying just on injectable medications. Not saying that they're a terrible thing to use at all, but they aren't enough in themselves if you want permanent long-term change. And there are things you can do that are actually pretty easy, that you can have a fun, wonderful, amazing, joyous, lovely, sparkly life whilst healing your metabolism without necessarily needing the injectable medications, or at least using them at a lower date. Similarly, I'd put people who have had weight loss surgery, bariatric surgery. It's just a tool. It is not bad at it by any stretch of the imagination, but it is only a tool. And you still need to get to that underlying cause, the underlying mechanism that's making everything out of balance. And the beautiful thing is, because everything's so interconnected, that if you start getting things back into a more healthy balance, start to rebalance your body in a healthy way, then everything else can come back into balance. And all of a sudden, this orchestra, which was out of tune and all over the place, and the brass section was sleeping on the job, and you didn't even know where the strings were, all of a sudden it's just playing beautifully, and you feel good, and you've got great energy, and you've got lovely mental clarity, and life becomes much more enjoyable, and you can live your absolute best life. But it can be quite simple, and it can be easy when you know how.
Indeed, indeed. And it's interesting. I've certainly got plenty of patients who are on injectable weight loss medications. Of course, every doctor does, because they're extremely popular, because they're extremely effective. Like, I'm not going to say they're not effective. If they weren't effective, nobody would use them. This is the thing. But what the issue is the supply, and the supply. It's fluttering is the way I would describe it. So people get themselves into a rhythm, and then it conks out, and then they get into a rhythm, and then the supply conks out, and you don't know when the supply is coming and going. And this has been part of the concern, I think, for people, is that the companies potentially, I don't know. Again, I don't know if they're not honest or they just have no idea what's going on, but they keep saying, oh, it'll be back in August, and it's not in August. It'll be back in October, and it's not in October. And and so they're actually now saying that the supply can't be guaranteed for the whole of 2024, which, that's significant if, in particular, if this is your only tool that you're using or that you know about. So, we're actually going to run a webinar on this, because I think it's really important. I think it's really important that people are empowered with the knowledge of how these medications work and what to do when their supply is running low or that it can't be guaranteed, because it's creating panic, and it creates distress. And it's really interesting, because I think for a lot of people, again, both bariatric surgery and people who are using injectable weight loss medications, there's a little bit of shame. Like, people don't want to tell other people. They feel like, oh, I'm not going to say anything because they'll think I've taken the easy way out. And I would like to completely dispel that myth. I don't think anybody who has had bariatric surgery is taking the easy way out. And I certainly don't think anybody who is using weight loss medications is taking the easy way out. They're not. They have, significant side effects. What I really hope, though, is that people who have been prescribed them have been given all the information they need to make an informed decision about that.
Beautiful, Lucy. Going back to your gorgeous analogy of the woodshed, and how the woodshed represents our fat stores all locked away there, and possibly quite inflammatory as well, and we want to open it up. How do you, like, there's more than one way to open your woodshed and to be able to burn fat and boost your metabolism healthily, and you probably just don't want to rely on one thing, but how do you do it? How do beautiful people
Yeah. So look, there's multiple things, levers that you can pull, things that you can do. Of course, the basis for us is really real food. The least processed food that you can eat for the majority of the time. That food should have a protein element to it and be, reduced in carbohydrates. And it's funny because we're pretty scathing of people that talk about diet and exercise. And part of the reason for that scathingness, is that a word? Is that, yeah, is that when people use diet and exercise, what they're talking about is calorie restriction and burning, running or cardio or something to move more calories. So it's the whole calorie in, calorie out. Whereas definitely movement is very, very helpful, but in particular building muscle. So the more muscle you have, then the better your metabolism. So we are very big believers of that. And then, of course, there's other lifestyle factors that we talk about all the time, which is good quality sleep. We started this with rejuvenation and restoration. Well, every single person has a rejuvenation palace, which is called your bedroom, and you can just go there and rejuvenate your head off for 8 hours. Awesome.
Depending on how many babies you have in there.
Yeah, I know. And that's in an ideal circumstance. You're absolutely right. There are seasons in life where that is harder than other times. But again, optimizing, you can't change the cards you dealt, but optimizing the way you can play them is helpful. And, of course, we often talk about stress management, and we've talked about that ad nauseum, it feels like, but cortisol plays a huge role in the orchestra.
It does. And the beautiful thing is if you just start, just real food, just start there, start making some delicious real food meals, educate yourself about that. And then things can really rebalance very quickly across your whole body. And you start to have that increased energy, less hunger, losing weight without feeling hunger. The cravings can go away. Small changes can really compound really quickly, and you can get your body into that beautiful balance.
All right, lovely one. See you all next week. The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualized medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.